Hi, this is Brenda with Keenan Kreations, and today I'm going to show you how to create this card using an embossed image from the Lighthearted Leaves stamp set and coloring with markers. To get started, we're going to use the Lighthearted Leaves stamp set. I'm going to use this image right here. I've already stamped this image in Versamark and I've embossed it with white embossing powder. Whenever you're embossing, you want to be sure and use the embossing buddy first. You would just brush that over your cardstock. That's going to remove any static from the paper and any oil left by your fingertips. You're going to ink up the image with Versamark. You're going to stamp it down. Shake your white powder on top, tap off the excess, and heat it with the heat tool. And I have several markers that I'm going to use. I've got Rich Raspberry, Daffodil Delight, Tempting Turquoise, Pumpkin Pie, and Old Olive. Now it is a little hard to see white on white, so make sure you have really good lighting. I'm going to start with Daffodil Delight, and it's okay if we go on top of the embossed image. The ink will not stick to that, and we'll remove any excess ink later. So just kind of pick a part of the design, and see how this has little sections right here? Well, you don't have to color each individual section. You can just go over like that, because the ink will not stick to the embossed part. So that's a quick way to apply the color. So we're just going to go in here and get this on. And I'm just going to repeat that. I think this little element repeats a couple of times in the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that done first. And again, it's okay if you go on top of the emboss. You just do want to try to stay inside the lines a little bit. I think I did this little area here. Now, if you go and you don't do the pattern exactly the same, I honestly don't think anyone's going to notice that. So just kind of have fun with the coloring. The first one takes the longest because you're kind of overthinking where to put the color. But then after that, you have one to copy, and the other ones go a lot faster. So I've got some yellow on here. So let's go next to Pumpkin Pie. Now the raspberry is pretty dark, so I don't want to go over and over because it's going to continue to get darker. So I try to add the color with one swipe. Now after I get this outside design, I want to go outside the whole image, because when I die cut it, it's going to leave a little white border, and I want the white embossing to pop. So I just want to go right along here, and I'm having kind of a wide border, just so I make sure when I die cut it, there's no white showing. Once you've got all your coloring done, you're going to take a damp paper towel, and this is really barely wet. You don't want it so wet that it wets the paper. You want it just damp enough that it'll lift any color that's on top of the embossed image. And I just kind of press it down and see how that lifts that up. And you just find a clean spot and you just kind of keep lifting that color up. Now once you get most of it up, find a very dry part of the towel and just lightly buff it. Now there's a matching set of framelits that coordinate with these images, so we're going to die cut with this shape right here using the Big Shot. Now you can see how this framelit fits the design perfectly, and you can also see why I went outside the edges a little bit. So you just remove the framelit, and you're going to pop this out. Now the base of our card is going to be Old Olive, and this is your standard card size, 8.5 by 5.5, and we just score it down the middle at 4 1/4. When you fold it, just make sure that your edges are lined up nice and neat. We're going to stamp this greeting from the Hostess set, 6 sayings, and you can earn this free with your Hostess dollars for a minimum 150 workshop. This is from the 2015 holiday catalog. We're going to use Old Olive ink, and I'm going to check it out on my scrap paper just to make sure it's on the block straight. And what I do is I line up one of the edges of the block to one of the lines on the grid paper, and then just stamp that down. And I can see that this actually looks really straight. So what that tells me is when I'm stamping on the cardstock, if I have the edge of the block parallel to the edge of the paper, then my greeting should be straight. Now I do like to open the card up flat when I'm stamping on the front, because sometimes if you try to stamp it this way, this will raise up and hit your stamp before you're ready, and it might leave a mark. So I'm just going to take my time and line up the cardstock to the grid paper, and then I'm just going to center that right along the bottom. And you do want this fairly close to the bottom so we have room for our element at the top. Now if for some reason this was crooked or I messed up how I stamped it, this could become the inside of your card. You would just layer this on top and fold your card the other way, and you could stamp your greeting again down here. Okay, we're going to layer onto Whisper White cardstock. This is 3 inches by 3.5, and then we're going to layer this onto Rich Raspberry, which is slightly larger at 3 1/8 by 3 5/8. So we're going to add adhesive around all the edges. So I'm just really checking to make sure that's nice and even before I press that down. Now we're going to add this with dimensionals. I want that stem to be supported, so I'm going to cut a little skinny part of the dimensionals. Actually, this part right here would work well. So I just need a little, almost like a sliver. And I find they're kind of hard to hold when they're really tiny like that, so I'm just going to put it on the end of my scissors, and then I can kind of use that to help place that in the right spot. The backings just pull right off. So we're going to set this right down here. Get it pretty close to center. Okay, I'm going to go back to my marker because I can see I just didn't fill in this area right here. And I think there was one more spot that I missed right here. I'm going to add dimensionals to the back of this piece as well. And this is going to go right on the front. I'm centering left to right, but a little bit closer to the top than the sides. This ties a really easy bow. Just make a loop, wrap it around, and then you're going to push back through and pull that. And then just kind of tug that out till you get the size that you like. So we're going to add this with a glue dot, and the glue dot's a little bit larger. So once we stick it on the bow, if you turn it over, just kind of fold it onto itself. So that way that's not showing. And then we're just going to place this right here. Okay, we'll stamp the inside. This greeting is also from the Light-Hearted Leaves stamp set, and I'm stamping this in Old Olive ink. And I'm going to use a different image from the set in Pumpkin Pie, and I'm just going to add this right to the bottom. Alrighty, so there's the inside of your card. I hope you enjoyed today's project. For more ideas, you can visit me at KeenanCreations.com. Thanks and have a great day.